On this edition of Sightings, damning new evidence that the supposed alien autopsy film really is a hoax.
This man went ahead and filmed this thing almost like home movies, and very bad home movies. I've been there.
The Red Lion pub is located in the epicenter of England's most mystical region. Perhaps that's why it's so haunted.
I quite honestly didn't believe in ghosts, but I do now.
Psychic Dorothy Allison produces startling evidence to help a man find the person who brutally murdered his mother.
The killer absolutely knew your mother.
Find out what's being done to avoid a catastrophic collision with a meteor.
The number of people who are working full-time on this problem would staff one McDonald's hamburger restaurant.
And who is responsible for the mysterious disappearance of Tibet's reincarnated Lama?
Welcome to Sightings. I'm Tim White. Without question, the biggest paranormal story of the decade has been the controversial alien autopsy film brought forward by promoter Ray Santilli. In a series of reports, Sightings has made no secret of the fact that we are highly skeptical about that film. And two recent interviews with trained military photographers only confirm our suspicions. The film is a fake. Early in 1995, a small London video distribution company made a startling announcement to the international UFO community. Film footage of an alien being had been discovered, a creature allegedly recovered from Roswell, New Mexico, after the crash of a flying saucer. At first, ufologists were ecstatic. This finally was the proof they'd been looking for. But as soon as most Roswell researchers, like Kent Jeffrey, saw the footage, they insisted that the autopsy film was a hoax.
Big-time hoaxes do big-time damage, and this is certainly a big-time hoax. It's probably the biggest con job in the history of ufology.
Jeffrey has spearheaded efforts to declassify Roswell documents and was among the first to see the film.
The first showing to the members of the UFO community and to the press was in London on May 5th. It was an invitation-only group, and like a lot of people, after just a short glance, I knew in my heart right then and there that this was definitely a hoax. I mean, if Roswell really happened as reported by the witnesses, and there are a few witnesses who claim to have seen the bodies or talked to people who have, this looked nothing like that. It looked like a modified human corpse to me.
At the center of the controversy is Ray Santilli, who claims that he received the autopsy film from the military camera operator who shot it. But Santilli has come under attack of late for making promises he just doesn't seem to be able to keep, including his claim that then President Harry Truman would be clearly visible on the film.
Santilli told crop researcher Colin Andrews that that was the thing that convinced him, Santilli, that the film was authentic when he saw President Truman. According to Santilli, Truman's face was visible so clearly that when he spoke, if you were a lip reader, you'd be able to understand his words.
But so far, no one, even remotely resembling President Truman, has been seen on the film.
Does it bother you that people are calling you a con man?
In this rare interview, Sightings correspondent Carla Wohl confronted Santilli and got a convoluted denial.
You said that President Truman could be seen in the film viewing the autopsy.
Now, I don't know, you know, if the event...
Have you seen him on the film?
No, but if the event occurred, as we believe it did, then, you know, quite a few people have kept quiet. But it is a discrepancy.
Film technicians, special effects artists, and forensic scientists have all analyzed the footage. But perhaps the best experts are the men who have first-hand knowledge about military photography. They are an elite fraternity, the relative handful of camera operators who document every important move the military makes. World War II veteran Joe Longo is president of the International Combat Camera Association. Kent Jeffrey asked Longo to evaluate the autopsy film.
For what the cameraman was sent there for, he certainly is not accomplishing his mission. See that shot that we just saw? That's the widest shot I've seen. They never really back off and show the the four walls or show you what the enclosure is like where this is taking place.
My understanding was that all medical procedures were shot in color. Even though color film was scarce in those days, something as important as the autopsy of an alien being certainly would have been a high priority.
Now, the thought of a cameraman covering something as important as an alien autopsy with a handheld 16mm camera with 3 lenses and a thing that you wind up, that's inconceivable. But I couldn't understand why this man went ahead and filmed this thing almost like home movies, and very bad home movies. I've been there. I've covered operations, major operations, and autopsies, and I know what's entailed. Technique was very bad.
In July 1995, Santelli released a statement titled The Cameraman's Story. It was touted as the true story of how the anonymous photographer had come into possession of so much valuable and classified footage.
That's an incredible story itself. He shot hundreds of canisters of film during the event itself. Each of the canisters or reels of film were 3 minutes in duration, and he separated during the filming reels that he felt were problem reels. He'd sent the remainder straight on to Washington, and he spent more time on the 22 reels of film which he'd processed.
Incredible and impossible, says retired Lieutenant Colonel Dan McGovern, who has shot tens of thousands of feet of top-secret film, some of which remains classified. His pictures of Hiroshima are world famous, and in the late 1940s, McGovern was assigned to 2 top-secret UFO projects in New Mexico.
If this particular cameraman said that he did his own processing, that's a bullcrap, because cameraman shoots his film and turns it into the lab for processing. When it comes out of the lab, all of the frames that were pulled out and attached to the leader has to be accounted for. That goes with the film to the top secret control officer. That's how you keep it secret. Not even that particular half a frame would get out of that particular lab.
Once he'd got to the stage where he felt he could send them on, he'd called Washington and asked them to pick up the film, collect the film, and he tried on numerous occasions, but they just failed to do so.
And then he said, "Oh my God, they never called for the film." Like, hello, yeah, I got 21. Would you come inside? Would you just send somebody over to pick it up? Okay, yeah, I'll leave the key under the mat. No, I don't understand. This is 21 rolls of important film.
And while this film is virtually dirt and scratch-free, Longo says the film should show signs of damage and deterioration after so many years.
If the film was 40 years old, 40-some-odd years old, black and white, even under ideal conditions, the film would be pretty badly beat up. It would have deteriorated. You'd see scratches, grain, a lot of splice marks, because the film being brittle, if you run it through any kind of a projector or a viewer, you're going to break it.
Many of these concerns could be answered if the autopsy cameraman would come forward. So far, he has not.
This guy's in his mid-80s. He's not interested in the subject. That's the first point. Secondly, he's got his family to consider, and his family are his only consideration. They're the only thing that he worries about.
One of the reasons that Santilli has given for the cameraman wanting to remain anonymous is that he's afraid of getting in trouble because of breaking a security violation. Well, that makes no sense, because if this story were true, the military would certainly know who that cameraman was, and he would be in big trouble. His best protection would be to go public.
And Santilli has failed to make good on his promise to provide frames of the original film for authentication.
Kodak has been standing by since July 1995, waiting for the film. If they were given only 1 or 2 frames, they could adequately analyze this film and determine one way or another whether it is genuine 1945 film. They would be very foolish not to have it authenticated, because then the value of the film would increase logarithmically. Instead of being worth a few $100,000 or whatever they've derived from this, it would be worth millions.
And Longo says there are fewer than 25 men alive today with the security clearance necessary to have filmed an alien autopsy.
We've got most of the fellas in our unit, our Combat Camera Association. I put the word out. Does anybody have any idea who this cameraman could be? And nobody's come up with it.
If someone came up with what they thought was a long-lost Van Gogh painting and announced that they weren't going to reveal where they got it, what the source of it was, and also announced that they were not going to allow any art experts to examine the painting, do chemical tests on it, whatever else would be necessary to authenticate it, yet said they were going to be selling prints of it, they'd be laughed right out of the field. They wouldn't get to first base. Nobody would take them seriously. And that's what should have happened here.
The so-called alien autopsy film is allegedly co-owned by several different companies around the world who receive money whenever the footage is aired on television. But assuming the footage is real, as they claim, the autopsy film is U.S. government film, and therefore, according to law, cannot be owned. Declassified government film may be broadcast anytime, anywhere, for free. And so we are taking the so-called owners at their word. We have paid no one for the use of the autopsy footage in this broadcast.
Next, England's most prestigious paranormal investigators take on one of its most haunted buildings.
The area seems to attract possible phenomena.
Sightings has returned again and again to one particular place in southern England where strange things happen. In Avebury, there are mysterious megaliths that dot the countryside, hundreds of sightings of UFOs, spectacular and unexplained crop circles. And this time on my trip to this paranormal hotspot, there was a new phenomenon to explore. There were cremated remains buried here, but this is not a tomb. The giant stones align with sunrise of the summer solstice, but this is not an observatory. Stonehenge and similar megaliths at Avebury, about 20 miles away, are among the world's oldest freestanding structures and its most enigmatic. Why were they built? And why do they rest on ley lines, pathways that circle the globe and are believed to pulse with extraordinary magnetic energy? Did Neolithic builders somehow sense this magnetism? And is this the energy that draws visitors here from around the world to ponder the meaning of structures that are 5,000 years old? Perhaps it is not a coincidence that this area is also home to mysterious crop circles and numerous UFO sightings. I came to Avebury to discover the power of the stones for myself, and what I found was not only a connection to the past, but also a connection to the paranormal inside this pub, the Red Lion.
I didn't have any belief in ghosts before I moved in. I just thought it was silly, basically. But that has completely changed now. But I don't think it's silly anymore.
Pat McCann changed his mind when he began managing the pub and started experiencing the haunting for himself.
We came here in May '95, and we most probably first noticed the pub was haunted within a week. My wife was clearing the restaurant up and found one of the tables covered in salt. She thought one of the staff hadn't cleared it properly, so she thought, right, you know, I'll speak to them in the morning. Cleared it herself, checked all the tables, everything was perfect. She went back up there 10 minutes later, and one of the tables had pepper on it, but the strange thing was there was no pepper pot anywhere near that table. And so that was really our first brush with Magnificent Florrie.
We all affectionately call her Florrie. Whether her name was Florrie or not, I don't know. But everybody calls her Florrie.
Wall lives next door to the Red Lion and has worked in the pub for many years. He believes that he's seen Florrie's antics firsthand.
I've seen glasses fly off the shelves for no apparent reason whatsoever. I came in here one night with a friend of mine, and we're sitting there talking, and happened to look round and saw an apparition with a lady in long skirts come through the locked door and disappearing towards what we call the well room. I quite honestly didn't believe in ghosts, but I do now.
In England, historic haunting sites like the Red Lion attract the attention of ASAP, the Association for the Scientific Study of Anomalous Phenomena. This UK-based group of young scientists and professionals is routinely called in to investigate hauntings throughout Europe.
What is the significance, is there any, to the fact that this pub, the Red Lion, sits in the middle of ancient stone circles here in Avebury?
The site has been a site of pilgrimage for thousands of years. The stones around have been here since 2600 BC. So it would appear that the area seems to attract possible phenomena. Not far away is a great UFO flap area. So you've got possible apparitions, you've got ancient stones, you've got UFOs. Why are they all in a specific area?
It also muddies the water because you've then got a lot of folklore around this area. So you've got a lot more imagination, a lot more hearsay. So to actually get at the phenomena, you've got to dig a lot deeper to actually find out what really did happen, if anything happened, and what's really going on.
And in the case of the Red Lion's infamous Flory, there's a lot of legend to wade through to get to the facts.
Well, the legend of Flory is that her husband came home from the war, that's our Civil War in the 1600s, to give a surprise. He went upstairs, and as he opened the door, he saw this other guy in the same room with his wife. And he then got rather upset.
Confronted by Flory's husband, so the story goes, the lover fled, leaving Flory to die at the hands of her jealous husband. Now, Flory wanders. Some say because she's searching for her errant lover. Others say Flory is seeking justice for her murder.
I don't think she's vindictive in any way, except for the fact that, as I say, she doesn't like men with beards. And I think possibly her husband had a beard.
She just doesn't like people with beards. We had a chap sitting in the restaurant, and he was under the chandelier at the far end. And the chandelier was just spinning, and the guy with the beard was virtually sitting underneath it.
ASAP members on site felt a good place to start searching for the truth would be at the bottom of this well, where, legend has it, Flory's body was dumped after her murder.
We have sent a diver down, but when he got to the bottom, it's about 90 feet deep. He got into the water, but then under the water there was a big boulder which he couldn't get past. So consequently, we still don't know whether poor Flory's remains are, down in that well.
Our possible phantom lady was supposed to have come from, again, there, walking through the pub to the main door.
The team digested reliable eyewitness accounts, then targeted certain areas of the pub where haunting activity was most likely to occur.
There's been the reports of salt cellars tipping salt and pepper and the chandelier moving, so a lot of the equipment set up there, the laser on the chandelier, so that we've got a reference point so the video cameras can see if it really is moving.
Our organisation holds no corporate view, so we don't expect something to be 100% genuine, but neither do we come in 100% cynical. I mean, I suppose we're sceptics. We have to be. We're open-minded. Let's look at the facts. Let's analyse the data.
There is much more data to be gathered before ASAP will confirm the existence of Flory or her paranormal pranks. But they do believe there is a connection between the activity here and the town's proximity to the ancient stones that encircle it. And they believe in the veracity of those who have accepted Flory as a real presence in their lives.
I feel extremely sorry for her, because you imagine all these years she's never been at peace, never been at rest.
Why does so much paranormal activity seem to be concentrated in this area? Well, one answer may be in the physical power of the giant granite stone circles, like those at Stonehenge in Avebury. Recent tests have shown that the megaliths generate unique electromagnetic fields, and some researchers are suggesting that these fields may be creating a kind of homing device for paranormal phenomena.
Next, more news from Colorado's mysterious valley. Bigfoot makes tracks on the internet. And later, a very real threat from space.
Here are some of the stories Sightings is following in the news. The San Luis Valley in southern Colorado has long been the site of bizarre and unexplained livestock deaths. And now, researcher Chris O'Brien has released the first comprehensive survey of the area's animal mutilation mystery. The San Luis Valley is 5,000 square miles of fertile pasture land, straddling the Colorado-New Mexico border. It's the largest, cleanest alpine meadow in the world. Not the kind of place you'd expect to find mutilated animals dotting the landscape. But ever since the bizarre death of a mayor named Lady in 1967, the valley has become famous for scenes like this. And now, researcher Chris O'Brien has written Mysterious Valley, the first comprehensive history of the San Luis Valley, and he reports that cattle mutilation is only the beginning of the story here.
I've documented hundreds of sightings, unusual animal deaths, weird cryptozoological creatures like Bigfoot and strange demons. It's a rich, rich area in terms of the traditional folklore and the mythos that goes back thousands of years.
O'Brien believes there is a connection between these creatures, a rich history of UFO sightings in the valley, and numerous unexplained mutilations where livestock organs have been removed with laser-like precision.
UFOs have often been reported in and around mutilation sites. Because a lot of these animal mutilation cases occur near military bases, nuclear reactors, and uranium mines and processing plants, there's some evidence to suggest, and many people believe, that the government and/or our military is involved in this. In over 12,000 documented cases, not one single person, to my knowledge, has ever been brought up on charges or has ever even been implicated publicly as being one of the mutilators. To my knowledge, this is the greatest serial crime spree of the 20th century.
A new sightings investigation in the San Luis Valley is now underway. Reports of new and bizarre mutilations coincide with recent UFO sightings, and we'll have that report on an upcoming edition of the program. On the World Wide Web, Bigfoot researcher Matt Moneymaker is bringing the elusive creature out of the forest and into your computer. Yes, even Sasquatch has her own homepage. Log on for a comprehensive monsterology. Call up a list of recent sightings throughout the United States and Canada to find out if Bigfoot is making an appearance in your area. You can download sketches, file your own sightings report, or listen to a supposed Bigfoot howl recorded in the field. And for the committed cryptozoologist, there are links to Bigfoot research equipment, including cameras, night vision binoculars, and specialized microphones. The Bigfoot Researcher's homepage is one of the largest monster resources on the web, and you can find it at this address. In Winnipeg, Canada, the results of Canada's first comprehensive UFO sighting survey have just been published, and the numbers strongly suggest that something's out there that no one can explain. Author Chris Rutkowski of Ufology Research of Manitoba compiled data provided by 14 researchers who spent a year gathering reports throughout Canada. In all, the group examined 1,000 reports covering a period of 5 years, with an in-depth analysis of 372 incidents reported between 1994 and 1995. The investigations compare factors like time of sighting, number of witnesses, color, and reflect an ongoing trend. The classic UFO profile is no longer a flying saucer. Rutkowski says that although his organization didn't have the resources available to the U.S. military during its Project Blue Book investigation, both groups reached roughly the same conclusion. Approximately 3% of all UFO sightings represent true unknowns. Currently, Rutkowski is launching an internet archive to catalog all Canadian sightings past and present. He hopes to publish a preliminary report later this year. We'll have more stories in the news next time. Now, here's what's coming up as Sightings continues.
Whoever murdered Dolores Davis also has her son to deal with.
It's been my mission in life to either assist or personally take down the person who killed my mother.
Now, psychic Dorothy Allison brings the power of the paranormal to the search.
Jeff Davis thinks that he knows who murdered his mother. The trouble is, there just isn't enough evidence to arrest the man. So Davis is looking for new information, new clues to keep the heat on. And Davis, an ex-cop, is searching in all directions, including an investigation instigated by sightings, an investigation of the psychic kind. When Dolores Davis asked his son what he wanted to be when he grew up, Jeff Davis never said, "The man who finds your murderer, Mom."
It's the ultimate defamation of somebody's humanity when you think about it. When you take another life.
His life has become defined by her death. In 1991, Dolores, D to her friends, was 62 and had just taken early retirement to spend more time with her children and grandchildren.
Dee was liked by everyone. She was a very sweet, lovable lady.
Nancy and Dolores worked together for over 13 years.
Quiet, but she had a really funny sense of humor. And she was just a good friend to everyone.
On January 18th, 1991, Dolores disappeared from her home in Wichita, Kansas. Her son found this scene: a brick thrown through the sliding glass door, the phone lines cut, Dolores' car still in the driveway. 2 weeks later, her body was discovered under a bridge. Lieutenant Greg Shawner is assigned to the unsolved case.
She was found under a bridge in a rural area of the county, approximately 11 miles from her home, and she had been bound with pantyhose and strangled. Near the body was found a Mardi Gras type mask.
5 years is a long time to wait for an answer. And every day that ticks by is one more day of pain and anger for a grieving son, a son who vows that justice will be his.
For the last 5 years, 8 months, and 3 weeks and a few days, it's been my mission in life to either assist or personally take down the person who killed my mother.
Jeff hired a private investigator, offered a $10,000 reward, and even wrote a book about his personal struggle with his mother's murder. But none of these efforts have brought him any closer to an arrest. Now it's time to begin a new phase of the investigation. But before that can happen, Jeff needs to confront one more demon, the mask left behind at the scene of the crime.
That was a mask that was found next to your mother's body.
That mask, seeing it like that, it was a very disquieting feeling. It's like an evil object. Here is the embodiment of a lot of horrible emotion. That's gotta mean something. It was morbid, just morbid.
To find that meaning, Sightings offered the services of psychic Dorothy Allison, who met with Lieutenant Shawner first and gave him her preliminary impressions.
Even though you found her February 1st, I feel she was already murdered on January 18th.
Dorothy felt the mask could reveal much about the murderer.
He's leaving a message when he leaves a mask there. That's exactly what he did. He left a message.
Then Dorothy was shown a videotape shot just after Dolores disappeared. Jeff, who believes he knows who murdered his mother, was startled to hear that Dorothy agrees.
All right, now, what I am observing from this film is that the killer absolutely knew your mother. This is not a stranger who murdered your mother. As far as I can see, the brick through the glass door, that was just an act to pretend that somebody broke in the place. It was the bedroom that bothers me the most. It seems that all the activity that where your mother got killed was right in that bedroom. I also feel that strangulation, yes, that was the death, but I believe that she was hit first. And then I also believe the pillow suffocated her as well. I get pillows over her face.
A lot of the information that Dorothy provided during the day I found to be consistent with information that we had gathered in the course of the investigation of this murder.
Dorothy seemed to know things that she should not have known. According to Davis, who has a copy of the autopsy report, his mother did have head wounds, as Dorothy said.
Some of the information, to my knowledge, has not been made public that she was able to provide.
And when she visited Dolores's home, Dorothy recreated the crime for Shawner and Davis with eerie accuracy.
He takes the bedclothes after. He doesn't wrap her up in them and carry them all out. He doesn't do that.
You have a feel for where those sheets wound up?
Well, my feeling is that when he took her out, there were no sheets on her. And I get something like that pipe over there, stuffed in that pipe, like something like that thing over there.
In fact, this is just like the culvert where those sheets were found. With her psychic impressions searching, Dorothy Allison asked to be taken to the place where Dolores was found.
This is the bridge under which Dolores' body was found 2 weeks after she had been reported missing.
Yeah, he knew this place, I'll tell you that right now. You know, I don't hear any planes going by. The last thing I think of is a plane. But you know there was one passing by as he was putting her underneath this bridge? That can give us a specific time.
Dorothy had so much knowledge of what was supposedly secret that she was asked to go one step further to work with an FBI detective to create a portrait of the killer.
How about this one here?
After looking at hundreds of features, Dorothy put together this face. She believes this is the face of a murderer.
This looks like the man that I see in my mind. I believe that's him.
And Jeff Davis believes that she is right, because this sketch bears a striking resemblance to the man Jeff says is the #1 suspect.
To die in your own house at the hands of some walking creature, that's the ultimate indignity, and that needs to be righted.
Dolores Davis's murderer is still at large. Her son is hoping that Dorothy Allison's startling revelations and the new sketch drawn from her psychic memory will break open the case. If you have any information that might help, please call the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Department in Kansas.
Next, is the Earth prepared to deal with a potentially apocalyptic threat from space?
We can deflect it, or we can actually hit it with something that disrupts it.
Every day, thousands of chunks of extraterrestrial debris flash across the sky and burn up in our atmosphere, then fall to Earth. This rain of cosmic dust, 10,000 pounds of it every year, does no damage. But every million years or so, an enormous meteorite makes its way to Earth with the potential to obliterate an entire species, like the dinosaurs, or a civilization or two. When will it happen next? Well, the only thing science can say is maybe 50,000 years from now, or 100 years from now, or maybe tomorrow. This rare videotape, taken in Pennsylvania in late 1996, shows what a small meteorite looks like entering Earth's atmosphere. While this one burned up before it ever hit the ground, more and more experts are worried that an enormous chunk of space rock could be on a collision course with Earth at this very moment. If it sounds far-fetched, you don't know your astronomical history. Siberia, 1908. The site, most scientists agree, of a devastating impact that had the same explosive power as an atomic bomb blast. And this kind of destruction is not an isolated event.
We expect that these kinds of events might happen once every few centuries, somewhere on the Earth.
Dr. Chapman is one of only a handful of scientists championing the study of this real threat from space.
Had the Tunguska explosion occurred over Washington, D.C., it would have killed tens of thousands of people.
65 million years ago, a meteor the size of Mount Everest crashed into North America and took with it the dinosaurs and all but a few microscopic organisms. And just a few years ago, scientists had a rare opportunity to see what that kind of impact looks like. Fortunately for us, the target this time was not Earth, but Jupiter. On July 16, 1994, fragments from the comet Shoemaker-Levy 9 crashed on the surface of Jupiter. The space probe Galileo was there to record the event, but the impact was so enormous that this historic event 400 million miles away could easily be seen through amateur telescopes on Earth.
When I looked through my own telescope at Jupiter and saw this huge black spot, the largest spot ever seen on the planet Jupiter since telescopes were invented, I just was in awe. If a comet or asteroid were to strike the Earth with the energy of one of the largest fragments of comet Shoemaker-Levy 9, it would plow through the atmosphere in a couple seconds, crash into the ground, make a crater tens of miles across, and it would leave in the high stratosphere a pall of dark material that would shut out much of the sunlight for months, maybe as long as a year. And that would be a very, very serious thing. Might well result in mass starvation for millions, hundreds of millions, even billions of people.
Dr. Chapman and others estimate that the chances of such an impact striking Earth within our lifetime is 1 in 20,000. the same as the odds of being struck by lightning or dying in a plane crash. But few governments seem worried.
NASA is currently funding a couple of small efforts of a few people looking through telescopes to find the threatening asteroids and comets. But the number of people all around the world who are working full-time on this problem would staff one McDonald's hamburger restaurant.
Despite apathy within officialdom, astronomers are making progress in their efforts to discover space rock on a collision course with Earth. At the Lowell Observatory in Arizona, Dr. Edward Bohl has developed Thelonious, a revolutionary new telescope system.
What's different about it is that it contains a very powerful camera that allows it to be a wide-angle telescope, if you like. So it can see large areas of the sky all in one go, and so far no one has been able to achieve that.
It's a system that Dr. Bohl believes could save the world, but so far the observatory hasn't raised enough money to make the system fully operational. And many more similar systems are needed around the world.
It's really set up to find the big ones, the ones that might hit every few 100,000 years and do truly catastrophic damage, that is, affect the whole Earth and perhaps wipe out our civilization.
But even if we could detect an object hurtling toward Earth, how could we stop it? Dr. Eileen Ryan specializes in solving just that eventuality.
If something were coming towards us, we have two possible strategies for having it avoid hitting us. We can deflect it, or we can actually hit it with something that disrupts it.
Believe it or not, the preferred method for disrupting an asteroid or meteor is to hit it with a thermonuclear device. Our current rocket guidance technology is extremely accurate and certainly capable of intercepting a threat from space. But scientists are not yet sure how or when to hit the target.
The problem with actually fragmenting an asteroid is that we need to know how big will the fragments be and how fast will they be going. We don't want to be in a situation where we turn a bullet coming towards us into a shotgun blast. Both circumstances are very lethal. We want instead to turn the bullet into very fine rubble and dust.
And another unanswered puzzle is why there is so much apathy for a disaster that could wipe out every living thing on the face of the Earth.
There are a lot of catastrophic events that we can't do anything about. We can't do anything about a hurricane, or we can't stop an earthquake, but we can stop or do something about an asteroid impact. So it is a little bit frustrating. The probability is low that anyone's going to die tomorrow, but it will happen someday.
The largest meteorite known to have survived its landing on the Earth is the 60-ton Hobo West. Its crash site is a national monument in Namibia. A little closer to home is the world's largest intact meteor crater, the Caña Diablo crater, 40 miles east of Flagstaff, Arizona.
Next, why has Tibet's reincarnated spiritual leader mysteriously disappeared?
It's a struggle for really the soul of man. It's not just Tibet.
Recently on Sightings, we reported on the Chinese government's public acknowledgement of reincarnation by their decision to choose the reincarnated soul of Tibet's Panchen Lama. Well, the story is far from over, and recent developments have taken a sinister turn. The fight for the soul of Tibet began in 1950, when China claimed this land for its own. The most spiritual culture on Earth was overtaken by a new government, whose occupying forces wanted Tibet's Buddhist leaders out. In 1959, Tibet's spiritual ruler, the Dalai Lama, was exiled. In his absence, the Panchen Lama ruled as long as he toed the party line. When the Panchen Lama died under suspicious circumstances in 1994, the search for his successor began. And according to tradition, the new Panchen Lama would be the reincarnation of the old, a child to be raised to rule in the Dalai Lama's stead.
You could say that the Dalai Lama was like the queen, the Panchen Lama is the rook, or the sun and the moon. And whichever of the Panchen or Dalai Lama is older becomes the tutor of the other, and when one of them dies, the other leads the search for his incarnation.
It is that sacred selection process that's at the root of a spiritual debate pitting Tibet against China. The Dalai Lama in exile declared this 6-year-old boy, Gedun Nyima, to be the 11th incarnation of the Panchen Lama, a choice that did not meet with China's approval.
The Chinese kind of went ballistic about this because the people at the Panchen Lama's monastery had gone behind their back and consulted with the Dalai Lama, as they should have, but they were forbidden to do by the Chinese.
In retribution, Chinese military forces arrested the Panchen Lama incarnate, making him the youngest prisoner in the world. His whereabouts are unknown, and he has not been seen or heard from since. In his place, China's choice for Panchen Lama has been installed.
China is fanatically concerned about keeping Tibet under China, and this reincarnation of Panchen Lama, he will grow as the major spiritual voice for Tibetans in Tibet. They want to bring him up and wash his brains so that he would, with his authority as the Panchen Lama, would serve their political purpose.
It's extremely ironic that the Chinese, who have done their best to eradicate Buddhism in the 45 years that they have occupied Tibet, should now be setting themselves up as the people who should find the new incarnation of the Panchen Lama.
Since China's choice for Panchen Lama will one day choose the Dalai Lama's successor when he dies, many observers fear China's intervention in this holy process will mean the end of the true centuries-old incarnate line.
The reason why the Dalai Lama and other Tibetans are concerned for this young Panchen Lama is not just because he is an important person, but because he's an innocent child that is being subjected to all this kind of imprisonment and who knows what kind of torture.
Tibetan Buddhists take a small measure of comfort in knowing that as an incarnate, he will survive.
This 6-year-old boy, as far as Tibetans are concerned, is not really just human. He is a Buddha. And as such, the Dalai Lama told me there's really nothing they can do to this boy, because he can always take a rebirth at any time and just kind of shoot out of his body.
And there are many stories of spiritual incarnates called tulkus who have dematerialized before the eyes of their torturers.
There are cases of highly evolved tulkus assuming what is called jalu, which is a rainbow body that you can actually see through it. Or there are cases of them disappearing in prison. When you really are involved in highly evolved spiritual practices, some of these people actually can fly. There's a meditation that enables them to fly for short distances. There are some remarkable things that Tibetans have mastered that we don't have a clue about. My sense of my exposure to them is that they are real and they exist.
He may be able to dematerialize in a rainbow body, or fly away from his captors, or reincarnate in another body. But so far, there is no sign that this little boy is free. Tibet's own so-called soul boy has not been seen or heard from since his imprisonment by the Chinese government. Although publicly hopeful, many Tibetans secretly believe that the boy has already been killed and will reappear to them in the future, in his next incarnation.
If you've had a paranormal experience, please write to us at Sightings. Sightings can also be contacted at America Online at keyword Sightings. Download images, sounds, and QuickTime clips from Sightings episodes. On the internet, access information about sightings and the paranormal at sci-fi.com/sightings.
Until next time, remember, no mystery is closed to an open mind. For Sightings, I'm Tim White. Impossible, says retired Lieutenant Colonel Dan McGovern, who has shot tens of thousands of feet of top-secret film, some of which remains classified. His pictures of Hiroshima are world famous, and in the late 1940s, McGovern was assigned to 2 top-secret UFO projects in New Mexico.
If this particular cameraman said that he did his own processing, that's a bullcrap, because cameraman shoots his film and turns it into the lab for processing. When it comes out of the lab, all of the frames that were pulled out and attached to the leader has to be accounted for. That goes with the film to the top secret control officer. That's how you keep a secret. Not even that particular half a frame would get out of that particular lab.
Once he'd got to the stage where he felt he could send them on, he called Washington and asked them to pick up the film, collect the film, and he tried on numerous occasions, but they just failed to do so.
And then he said, "Oh my God, they never called for the film." Like, hello, yeah, I got 21. Would you come inside? Would you just send somebody over to pick it up? Okay, yeah, I'll leave the key under the mat. No, I don't understand it. This is 21 rolls of important film.
And while this film is virtually dirt and scratch-free, Longo says the film should show signs of damage and deterioration after so many years.
If the film was 40 years old, 40-some-odd years old, black and white, even under ideal conditions, the film would be pretty...
On this edition of Sightings, damning new evidence that the supposed alien autopsy film really is a hoax.
This man went ahead and filmed this thing almost like home movies, and very bad home movies. I've been there.
The Red Lion Pub is located in the epicenter of England's most mystical region. Perhaps that's why it's so haunted.
I quite honestly didn't believe in ghosts, but I do now.
Psychic Dorothy Allison produces startling evidence to help a man find the person who brutally murdered his mother.
The killer absolutely knew your mother.
Find out what's being done to avoid a catastrophic collision with a meteor.
The number of people who are working full-time on this problem would staff one McDonald's hamburger restaurant.
And who is responsible for the mysterious disappearance of Tibet's reincarnated Lama?
Welcome to Sightings. I'm Tim White. Without question, the biggest paranormal story of the decade has been the controversial alien autopsy film brought forward by promoter Ray Santilli. In a series of reports, Sightings has made no secret of the autopsy film from the military camera operator who shot it. But Santilli has come under attack of late for making promises he just doesn't seem to be able to keep, including his claim that then President Harry Truman would be clearly visible on the film.
Santilli told crop researcher Colin Andrews that that was the thing that convinced him, Santilli, that the film was authentic when he saw President Truman. According to Santilli, Truman's face was visible so clearly that when he spoke, if you were a lip reader, you'd be able to understand his words.
But so far, no one, even remotely resembling President Truman, has been seen on the film.
Does it bother you that people are calling you a con man?
In this rare interview, Sightings correspondent Carla Wohl confronted Santilli and got a convoluted denial.
You said that President Truman could be seen in the film viewing the autopsy.
Now, I don't know, you know, if the event...
Have you seen him on the film?
No, but if the event occurred, as we believe it did, then, you know, quite a few people have kept quiet. But it is a discrepancy.
Film technicians, special effects artists, and forensic scientists have all analyzed the footage. But perhaps the best experts are the men who have first-hand knowledge about military photography. They are an elite fraternity, the relative handful of camera operators who document every important move the military makes. World War II veteran Joe Longo is president of the International Combat Camera Association. Kent Jeffrey asked Longo to evaluate the autopsy film.
For what the cameraman was sent there for, he certainly is not accomplishing his mission. See that shot that you...
Of the fact that we are highly skeptical about that film. And two recent interviews with trained military photographers only confirm our suspicions. The film is a fake. Early in 1995, a small London video distribution company made a startling announcement to the international UFO community. Film footage of an alien being had been discovered, a creature allegedly recovered from Roswell, New Mexico, after the crash of a flying saucer. At first, ufologists were ecstatic. This finally was the proof they'd been looking for. But as soon as most Roswell researchers, like Kent Jeffrey, saw the footage, they insisted that the autopsy film was a hoax.
Big-time hoaxes do big-time damage, and this is certainly a big-time hoax. It's probably the biggest con job in the history of ufology.
Jeffrey has spearheaded efforts to declassify Roswell documents and was among the first to see the film.
The first showing to the members of the UFO community and to the press was in London on May 5th. It was an invitation-only group, and like a lot of people, after just a short glance, I knew in my heart right then and there that this was definitely a hoax. I mean, if Roswell really happened as reported by the witnesses, and there are a few witnesses who claim to have seen the bodies or talked to people who have, this looked nothing like that. It looked like a modified human corpse to me.
At the center of the controversy is Ray Santilli, who claims that he received...
As we just saw, that's the widest shot I've seen. They never really back off and show the four walls or show you what the enclosure is like where this is taking place.
My understanding was that all medical procedures were shot in color. Even though color film was scarce in those days, something as important as the autopsy of an alien being certainly would have been a high priority.
Now, the thought of a cameraman covering something as important as an alien autopsy with a handheld 16mm camera with 3 lenses and a thing that you wind up, that's inconceivable. But I couldn't understand why this man went ahead and filmed this thing almost like home movies, and very bad home movies. I've been there. I've covered operations, major operations, and autopsies, and I know what's entailed. Technique was very bad.
In July 1995, Santilli released a statement titled The Cameraman's Story. It was touted as the true story of how the anonymous photographer had come into possession of so much valuable and classified footage.
That's an incredible story itself. He shot hundreds of canisters of film during the event itself. Each of the canisters or reels of film were 3 minutes in duration, and he separated during the filming reels that he felt were problem reels. He'd sent the remainder straight on to Washington, and he spent more time on the 22 reels of film which he'd processed.
Incredible.